So today at Hyperstamper, we have a very eclectic mishmash of all kinds of styles here. I'm trying to step outside of my comfort zone, and so I put this together using just a ton of my favorite pieces in my stash. So this is an antique book called the Kenneth Roberts Reader, and I found this beautiful piece of vintage jewelry that I have taken apart and put one of the pieces up here along with a rusted out key and a chain, and that sits on top of this antique book interior signature spine, and it has a bit of navy spotted through it, which would have been the markings for where the signatures went for the publishers, and I liked it because it went with the cover color. And then I pulled this title off of an antique book page, The Glorious Adventure, page 30. And now this is an antique button, and this is a vintage box that held a deck of playing cards, and you've probably seen these in some of my journals if you follow me. It's with Prince Edward on it. So this was the box. I thought the box was just beautiful. And so that's the top of the box, made in England, and then the beautiful gold emboss here. I added an antique knob here. It's wooden on top of a what might be brass lift plate, and I just think it's so much fun. Then down here, I pulled another title off of an antique book page called The Story of Her Life and Work, and another rusted out key with some vintage doily, and I just love it. I really do. I think it is so fun. This style won't be for everybody, and I didn't think it was for me, but there you go. I love it. So the book jacket cover was so brittle and so old, so I just made a pocket out of it here, and I put the very last of my wildflower pages from that English wildflower book tucked into here, and an antique stamp down here. And let's see, there's the original pages from this vintage book here from 1945. You can see that there. And here's another one of these wonderful photographs from my collection. Unfortunately, I don't know who this one is, but isn't she lovely in her pretty dress? This looks like it would be from the late 40s. And I can also tell by the cutting around the edge. Could possibly even be early 50s. And here's a blank, one of those wine labels that never got used. And then I've got everything in here is real antique paper, vintage paper, except these tea-dye pages that I made and hand stamped. And look at this fun postage stamp collector's book, and somebody has added a stamp here on a hinge over the years. This is from the 50s. And then this pocket here I made out of an antique book page. And this is a really pretty women's needlepoint or needlework magazine. And look at that, isn't that wonderful? The colors are spectacular in that for something that is 70 years old. And over here, I've put the rest of that brittle book cover in here just so you can journal on there. It's kind of fun. And then this I just made. It came out of a book that I got. It's actually a very old book, but it was put into tons of different libraries. I found about 5 different library markings on it. Ended up April 12th, 1990 was when they finally, I believe, took it out of circulation. And inside here, I just put a 1926 ledger page for you to journal on. That's kind of fun, eh? Made this pocket out of some vintage trim. Just another journaling page here. Turned into an envelope, and another wonderful children's book page. Happy family eating at the counter of a restaurant or a diner. And that's that American Garden page there with a lovely image. And just another tag that I've made here out of antique papers in this pocket, also made out of a vintage dictionary page and some Monopoly money from the 30s, the first decade that Monopoly was made. Another one of these wonderful postage stamp pages. And let's see what's back here. Oh yeah, the 1928 Billboard magazine with the wonderful advertisements. Just like advertisements for carousels and concessions and carnival people needed. It's so wonderful and fun to read. to read those. You're going to enjoy that. And then this wonderful book out of The Joyous Travelers. Look at this fantastic image. And that's on that wonderful old cardstock with the velvety feel. And a vintage bird book here. It's on glossy, but it is in fact old. And you can see that beautiful coloring and discoloring on the edges of that. 1934 Paris, France almanac, so almost 90 years old this is. And that is really fun. If you put into Google Translate, you can find out what it says. It's kind of fun. And just tucked this in here. It's very brittle because it comes out of an antique engineering book. And then this is from 1899. And I liked it because it said the Garden Club. And I had to put that on top of a sticker page because it was just disintegrating so badly. So it saved, that sort of saved it from disintegrating, and you can journal on it. Just more trims, another vintage and antique paper journaling tag there, a vintage bingo card from the 50s. And I just love all these little bits and pieces. You'll have so much fun just looking through it. Like that's a 1933 copyright page there. And here's a lovely picture from our capital, Ottawa, and that is from 1947. Another pocket here out of an antique song page. And in here is from 1892, Demarest magazine for women, and it is just got the most lovely images on it. I don't have many of these left, and they are very delicate, but so precious. So I hope you enjoy those if this becomes your journal. Now this is fun. This I got off the end of a box, which was the piano paper roll. It was in the box for that. And it had the word Dearest on it. That was the name of the song for that roll. And I thought that was so pretty. The box disintegrated. I turned it into tags, and that's a little cluster there. Just some 4 vintage and antique stamps in this vintage glassine bag that somebody wrote 13 by 13 and a half on. I don't know what that means, but I left it on. And another one of those blank journaling pages and a lovely children's book image. Wonderful journal page from a ledger with the hand stamped numbers in the corner, and that's from 1929. It's just fantastic. The old ink and inkwell. A 1920s music sheet. And then just, you know, pretty little poems here from a children's book, and a vintage receipt with the carbon paper. So I put some more vintage paper on the back of that from a cookbook, just so it wouldn't get carbon everywhere. Some of us remember carbon paper like me. That's from 1904 from the Freckles book. More trim and tea-dyed paper and some animal images. I've got a vintage stamp up here and an antique book page here, 107 Fleur. And you can journal on the front and back of that one. A lovely old map from a history book. And then a vintage pattern instructions, that wonderful 1955 Polish embroidery image, a piece of old needlepoint that I made into a belly band and put a vintage canasta score sheet on there to journal on. And that brings us to the end of the book with the original end pages in there. So I hope you enjoyed. I'm about to put on Etsy, and let me know what you think of this weirdo style that I've stepped out of my box to make. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks.